What's up? It's Mike, and I have just a small question to ask you. Have you ever just felt the weight of reality crash over you when you realize you're one tiny grain of sand amongst trillions of other grains, amongst a billion beaches, across a billion worlds, across a trillion different galaxies inside of our universe? Have you also ever wondered what this has to do with Crash Bandicoot? Well, I did say Crash somewhere in there. Let me be straight with you, because usually I'm curved. I grew up a tried and true Nintendo kid. I grew up with the Game Boy Advance, the Wii, the 3DS, and the games I played on these systems made me the person I am today. Very cheesy sounding, I know. The first console I ever owned that wasn't a Nintendo system was a PS4, and I'm not ashamed to admit I literally only used it to play Spider-Man. So, what was all of this leading up to? I don't know, don't ask me. What I was getting at with all of this is that I didn't grow up with, nor ever have a connection with, nor have ever even played a game that featured the titular orange rat, Crash Bandicoot. My only knowledge of Crash and his games come from the Odd Kid Icarus video. Love you, by the way. So when I saw one day that the Crash Bandicoot N-Sane Trilogy was on sale on the Nintendo Switch eShop, I figured then was a better time than never to jump right into it. Speaking of which, why is the Nintendo Switch eShop so bad? Why does it run so poorly? Why does it have so much shovelware? And why is there no music? Considering all the music the Wii U eShop had, and considering the now legendary status of the Wii Shop channel's music, I don't think it would be too much of an ask. And those are my thoughts on the Switch eShop. I really hope you all enjoyed this video. Yeah? Uh-huh. What? What do you mean that's not what I was talking about? Huh? An orange rat? Oh, believe it or not, this video was supposed to be about Crash Bandicoot. Could've fooled me. Oh, and I definitely fooled me. Wait. Going back to Crash, if you aren't aware of who he is like I was for the longest time, he had a giant presence on the original PlayStation back between 1996 and 1998 when the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy, developed by Naughty Dog, hit store shelves. And for a time, Crash was set to rival the likes of both Mario and Sonic. With his fellow giant PlayStation mascot Spyro the Purple Dragon, the future looked very bright for the Bandicoot. He then proceeded to not appear in another game for 24 years until Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, released in 2020. And trust me, there aren't any games in between. Not a single one. Actually, I fibbed a little back there. Crash did appear in a game in between the original trilogy and Crash 4. That thing being the very thing we're talking about today. A remastering of the original 3 games called the Crash Bandicoot N-Sane Trilogy. But no other games in between there, I swear, don't look that up. In theory, Crash Bandicoot The N-Sane Trilogy should be the perfect jumping in point for any aspiring Crash fan. A complete from the ground up remaster of 3 of Crash's supposed best games? Well, we'll only be talking about the first game today. Why, you may ask? What, do I look like a guy with a lot of spare time? So Crash Bandicoot 1 released all the way back in 1996, as I mentioned earlier. And even with the visual facelift, I think it'll take a lot for this game to still hold up nowadays. The level designs, camera controls, the mechanics, a whole lot of stuff could have soured in the past couple of decades. Going back to that first point, this visual facelift is a great one. Looking back at some of the original PS1 graphics and then looking at some N-Sane Trilogy gameplay, the N-Sane Trilogy did a fantastic job at transitioning Crash's looks to the modern day. With the super cartoony art style I just love. While some of the charm is lost in translation, I still prefer the look of the N-Sane Trilogy overall. I am playing the Switch version of the N-Sane Trilogy, and while there were some things that were obviously sacrificed to reach the graphical quality of the game, I mean, just look how blurry this checkpoint text is. The sacrifices made here were smart and don't impact the overall experience. The game as a whole still looks great on Switch, and in handheld mode, the sacrifices are even less noticeable. In fact, the overall presentation is just generally quite solid. The only thing I would complain about is how much 60 FPS could really improve a type platformer like this. But other than that, everything works out here. I was gonna wait a little longer, but why not? Let's just get into the biggest question regarding Crash Bandicoot on the N-Sane Trilogy for me. That being, does this game from 20 odd years ago still hold up today? Well, I never said I was gonna answer the question, I just thought I'd bring it up for fun. Something that definitely doesn't hold up to today's standards is this camera system. This camera. This thing took me forever to get used to, and in the process I couldn't get close to telling you how many jumps I thought would make it that just didn't. It's so hard to see things sometimes, and there's no way you're telling me that you can't improve the angles on this thing, or just change the whole system into a full-blown modern free-moving camera system. I get keeping the original spirit of the games, but the original spirit of this camera belongs in 96. The worst culprit are these boulder stages, which should be fun, but in reality every jump is a jump of faith because you can't see what you're landing on until still after you press jump. So your best bet is to just press and hold down the jump button and pray that it's far enough. Hey guys, and welcome to my first ever MikeSpike top 10 video, and in this video, we'll be ranking my top 10 least favorite things of all time. Whether you agree or disagree with this list, I couldn't care less. In the number 10 spot, we have life itself, and in the number 9 spot, we have Crash 1's camera. In the number 8 spot, we also have Crash 1's camera, and what's number 7 will really shock you. I'm sorry, I just really hate this camera. Something that seems to have timeless appeal here is breaking boxes. I don't know what it is, but breaking these things just never gets old. You know me, I'm not a completionist, and the only thing I hate more than 100% in games is Crash 1's camera. I'm sorry, I just really hate this camera. But I did actively try to break every box I could find, not only because breaking them is so much fun, but also so I can save Crash's back from the wrath of God. Oh, these boxes will stop. Any minute now. Any minute now. Any minute now. Any second now. Where's PETA when you need them and they're not raging about Pokemon's existence? Moving on to the controls, they're actually really good. Crash Bandicoot is all about tight platforming, and these controls facilitate that wonderfully. They did also take a bit to get used to, but I got the hang of it fairly quickly. One thing that actually helped quite a bit with the good controls here is actually the Nintendo Switch Pro Controller's D-pad. Even though this controller does come at a premium, don't get me wrong, I would definitely say it's worth it. The controller as a whole is wonderful, but the D-pad is just sublime. It's extremely responsive and the perfect mix of clicky with a bit of mush, which makes it perfect for the 2D sections of Crash Bandicoot. Oh, that's right, we're still talking about that guy. Speaking of that guy, the story in Crash Bandicoot is about as straightforward as his levels. He needs to save his girlfriend from an evil dude. To give credit where credit is due, I do love the voice actor of Dr. Neo Cortex, which is good because he's essentially the only character that speaks.
Darn you, Crash Bandicoot!
The overall level design of Crash is extremely good, even though it feels a lot more like a 2D platformer than a 3D one, even in the supposed full 3D sections. It's hard to explain, but the best way I can put it is, if you look up the definition of linear, you'll find Crash Bandicoot level design somewhere in there. I don't mind it though, as the levels are still really fun to play through. They tend to reuse the same environments over and over again though, and after a while, all the levels just started to blend into me. There was one level in particular that I absolutely hated though, and that's the lab, exclusively because of this moment right here. Just pain. None of the other levels really stand out though. Even the 2 notorious bridge levels only took me a couple of tries. The difficulty level and curve are really solid here, and there aren't any random spikes in difficulty. The later the game went on, the tighter the platforming also got, which I can appreciate, especially after playing Sonic Colors. Something that just isn't fun to play through though are these boss fights. Just look at this. I know it's low-hanging fruit, but the other ones like Donkey Kong's Australian brother here aren't much better. The final boss is just about as weak as the other ones, and the only boss that even gave me the tiniest amount of trouble was Nitrous Brio, but only because I'm stupid. The other thing that doesn't hold up is the music, which I gotta be honest, I don't remember a single track from this game minus the intro music, which goes about 200 times harder than every other track in the Crash Bandicoot N-Sane Trilogy. And that was the first Crash Bandicoot game on the N-Sane Trilogy. Now, after experiencing the Tangerine Time that is Crash, let's finally answer the question I brought up earlier. Does this game hold up? Well, I